Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Monday edition of Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze, and very thankful my wife just gave me a haircut, and so now I am ready for the Bible conference, which is going to be coming up next week. Is that right? Yeah, next week. Wow, that has come up fast. And so it's a lot of fun. I'm going to be feverishly getting in the final preparations, and there's still a lot of preparations to do for the Bible conference, but all the same, I'm going to do my very best. The schedule for the Bible conference, here you go. We've got, there we go, maybe you can see it. 5:30 is when it's all going to start, which is going to be pizza provided by Roma's. Well, not provided by them. They're going to make it. Mark Baze Ministries is providing it. And Roma is an Italian restaurant that's here in southeastern Oklahoma, and they make excellent food. You will want to be here for Friday night. And of course, we're going to have our session number 1, which is going to start at 6:30, which is the big Bible problem. Saturday, things will start at 9:30 with donuts and coffee. With session number 2, the contradictory kingdom. Then we'll have our lunchtime provided by the church. And then we'll have session number 3, 4, and 5 after lunch. Session number 3, when the church actually began. Session number 4, reinterpreting Jesus' teachings. Session number 5, Paul's hijacking of the New Testament. And then Sunday, we will get started at 10 a.m., session number 6, with the convoluted New Covenant. And session number 7, neglecting the necessities. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time of fellowship, and I hope that you are able to attend in person. If you can't attend in person, we will absolutely be live streaming everything. So you will be able to watch online as well. Now, a couple of announcements before we get into today's show. We've got a lot of interesting things to talk about. We've got Tucker Carlson, who is claiming to be under surveillance by the CIA. My question is, who isn't under surveillance by the CIA? But anyways, is there some validity to it? Is this just kind of more so entertainment, right? Fascinating tabloid articles. We'll talk about the current state of the war with Iran and where things are with NATO. And then we're going to finish it all up with talking about the men's retreat for the BGCO, the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma. And I'll share my thoughts on all of that. So let's see, a few things I want to talk about. On Sunday, we had a great time at church. I thought it was a good time at Blue Baptist Church. Those of you who were able to attend in person, it was always great to see you. And for those who were able to attend online. Let's see, the Sunday School series, the Byzantine Family, session number 3 of our Identifying the Bible series. We looked at a few different manuscript examples of, hey, where does the Byzantine family originate from, pointing to an example of a manuscript from Cyprus or maybe the region of Israel, but also in Greece. And then we even looked at the dating of the Byzantine text and really tried to make a strong point that the Byzantine family is an old text as well. It seems like the Alexandrian gets all the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to really try to approach this just from a facts-based standpoint. Even though I do have a bias, I'm not going to hide the ball. I do think the Byzantine family is reliable. I am a King James user, which really traces its origins back to the Byzantine. But I'm trying to look at the facts and just make the case that, yeah, the Byzantine text is quite old, and those who claim that there is no evidence for the Byzantine to have any origins much earlier than 1000 AD. That's just simply not correct. It's not even the 9th century, the 8th century. We can go all the way back to the 4th and 5th century, if not earlier than that, for the Byzantine textual family. And so if you don't know what I'm even talking about, why that matters, you need to go and you need to watch some of our sessions to see the context there of the textual families and why that's important. That's going to be an ongoing study for us. We'll be doing this for a long time, this study on identifying the Bible for Sunday school. And then we had the War for the Church, Our Unique Purpose, Part 2, looking at the instruction to the aged women and how they are to teach the young women, and that seemed to be received well by my church. The ladies weren't too angry with me. No, they responded really well, and we're just thankful for Bible teaching that was done on a Sunday morning. Once again, we didn't have Sunday night service because I am prepping for the Bible study. And I will say this is the last week of Shields and Arrows before the Bible conference. I'm going to be taking off all of next week because there will be some final things that I'm going to have to do, whether that's prepping some final notes, printing things off, as well as preparing slides for the sessions, the presentation. So we will have Shields and Arrows this week. As a matter of fact, I plan on having Shields and Arrows maybe every day this week, maybe every single day. Certainly I will tomorrow because this is spring break and I'm not going to be having to do security at my son's school. And so we should have maybe a full day. And it's a nice time. It gives me a chance to take a break from the prep, which I was doing earlier this morning, and then I'm going to turn right around and do once the show is concluded. All right, so with that, very much excited about all these things. I hope that you are too. Hope you plan on joining us for the conference, addressing doctrinal issues that churches avoid. Let me show that to you one more time if you did not catch that. That is the theme, the 2026 Spring Bible Conference, March 27th through the 29th, addressing doctrinal issues that churches avoid. And so it's going to be fun. I'm going to get past this. You may hear me cough or clear my throat a little bit. It's 31 degrees right now in Oklahoma. We've had a cold front come in. The weather has been quite unpredictable. I know that some of you see that Trent is with us, our friend from Wisconsin. They are snowed in right now, so I guess he's not able to work. But he's able to join us at Shields and Arrows, and I appreciate that. I think you join us most of the time when you can. Maybe you don't always get to watch live or comment, so thanks, Trent. It's great to have you. Okay, let's talk about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson has made himself quite a very hot topic as of late. He has, broke away from Fox News. He has the Tucker Carlson Network. Early on, I would say, and probably some would still say, and I think that it would be fair, he's doing some interesting things, I guess. He's having some interesting people on. It seems like as of late, all he's doing is just focusing on the Iran war and Israel. But back in about a year ago, I thought that he was having some very interesting guests. He was having people, historians, that were talking about the current state of America and can America continue on as it exists. Basically, there's two paths for America. Either it goes more imperial or you see an increase in state sovereignty. I remember that podcast, that episode that he did, and I thought that was an interesting study and good for him to have that historian on and willing to have those conversations. Of course, he's had some others who I would disagree with, certainly on some matters regarding theology. He's had, John Rich on. John Rich basically disparaged dispensationalism, and I didn't appreciate that. I think it was misguided in its presentation, his analysis of things. So Tucker Carlson's kind of been hit and miss here lately. I feel like he's been a lot of miss in some ways, just because he really seems to be digging into Israel is controlling everything. Now, I have some friends, and I will admit it, okay? Don't get mad at me, all right? I have friends all over the spectrum. I've got friends who are Calvinists. I'm friends with a Presbyterian, all right? So I have some friends who are very much of the opinion that, yeah, we need to take a really serious, hard look at Israel and, how much are they behind the scenes, pulling the strings? And Tucker's really been leaning heavily into that as of late. I do think to some degree he has been so hypercritical of everything Trump has done. And I'm not quite there, all right? I'm not one of those that's on the, I guess I'm not the cynical right. I'm still of the opinion here, as I think about Shields and Arrows, defending the faith, the family, the fellowship. We're better off with Trump in office than if it was Kamala Harris. So I do reject the Nick Fuenteses of the world and others who say, I'm gonna vote Democrat because the Republicans are so terrible. And I'm not there, okay? So Tucker Carlson's been an interesting figure. He's been all over the board in a lot of ways. But with that, here's his website. He has a brief video where He says, we discovered the CIA is reading our text to frame us for a crime. All right, big claim from Tucker Carlson there. I mean, saying that, yeah, the CIA is, not only is he saying they're reading our text, which I don't know is a really big deal. I feel like the CIA probably sees a lot of our information, but specifically the idea that he is going to be framed for a crime. The claim is, without going into a whole lot of depth and detail here, because I don't think there's a whole lot that we can accomplish by going into the detail of his specific claims. But the claim is that he is being under surveillance, being accused of being a spy for Iran, and therefore they're going to try to, arrest him and try him for treason. That's essentially what it boils down to, okay? And it's all over X right now. It's all that a lot of people are talking about. Hey, has Trump weaponized the CIA to take down his critics, like Tucker Carlson, who has been a very open critic of Trump. Some things, maybe justifiably so. Other things, I think that he is misguided. I think he's wrong in a lot of ways. When it comes to Tucker Carlson, there is an interesting discussion here, and then we'll get into the ramifications and some of the things to consider on this allegation that he's made regarding of the framing done by the CIA, which I haven't heard anything from the government yet, but we'll get to that. There are some people like Candace Owens out there. I do not necessarily believe that Candace Owens is a genuine person. So if you're watching this and you feel a little bit impartial to Candace Owens, which I don't think most of my audience probably does, you can feel free to give your opinion of Candace Owens if you would like to in the comments section. But I don't want to upset you or offend you, but I'm just going to tell you my honest opinion where I'm sitting. That way you never are wondering, what are his thoughts on all this? I don't think that Candace Owens is a genuine person. I think that she is looking for clicks. Now, in the effort to look for clicks, do you occasionally stumble upon something that may be true? Sure, right? A broken clock can be right twice a day. But I think that Candace Owens, her primary concern is, how do I get traffic to my website, to my show, so I can make money, right? Make a living. I don't know how much money she's made. I imagine she's doing pretty well. So somebody like Candace Owens, I don't necessarily think she is a true believer. I think that if it was, I don't know. I think that if there was some other figure that was more intriguing, that could get her more views, I imagine she'd probably be spending her time talking about them instead of talking about Erica Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk's widow, talking about Charlie Kirk himself, or talking about Epstein or what have you. I think that she believes, and she seems to be proven right here, that if she can continue to heavily emphasize the speculation and fantastical stories surrounding Charlie Kirk, that people will flock to her. And she has millions and millions of views. I mean, when she goes live, I don't know how many. She may have 1 million people watching on a single live stream, if not hundreds of thousands, okay, compared to our, modest number. I just don't think that she's really a believer. Now, when it comes to Tucker Carlson, I don't know. There's times when I think that he's not a real believer either, and he just wants to have the same audience and traffic that Candace Owens has. However, Tucker could be, I would be more prone to believing Tucker Carlson is more genuine than Candace Owens, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that Tucker is not doing what is best for his channel and his traffic. So even if, this is the point I'm trying to make here, even if Tucker Carlson is genuine or is more genuine compared to others, that doesn't mean that he is not highly motivated to talk about the things that he thinks are going to buy him, get him higher traffic, right? And I've even struggled with myself to some degree when it comes to my show when I talk about politics, because I realize my audience is people that are all over the place. We've got some people who live in Oklahoma, but we've got other people who live in other countries. We have some people who live in other states, and we have some people who live in other countries. If I had spent all my time talking just about Oklahoma news, probably wouldn't be quite as interesting to you because it's not as relevant to somebody like, I don't know, Mary, who lives in Texas. She probably would like to hear a little bit of something about Texas, right? So I'm going to talk about James Tallarico and his bid for Senate, and does he have a chance to win? Like, we will talk about him, and we have talked about him. So you do have to think about what your audience is and, what are the things that they want to hear. But at the same time, I'll talk about the BGCO, the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma, quite a bit, even though that doesn't necessarily have as much relevance to somebody who lives in another state and also somebody who has zero interest in the SBC. And that's because I think it's important for my area, my region, to have somebody speaking out about, I think, the very serious issues and errors that are prevalent within the BGCO. So, all that being said, Tucker Carlson, does he really believe the CIA is targeting him and trying to frame him? He may genuinely believe it. I'm not saying he does, but I'm trying to be generous and also just acknowledging that I find Tucker Carlson potentially more genuine than Candace Owens. I could be wrong in all that, right? You listen to me for my thoughts and opinions, not for absolute fact. But hopefully when we study the Bible, we're very faithful and accurate when we have our theology sections and segments. So all of this is very good for Tucker. Tucker is all over X right now. There's people referring to him as the first modern political prisoner, even though he hasn't been arrested. You want to talk about one of the first modern political prisoners? Probably January 6th people would be the first modern political prisoners. So it's funny, everybody cries justice for Tucker, I guess, right? And how terrible this is. That's all you're going to see right now if you go to a certain segments of the internet and X and everything. We still have January 6th protesters serving time, really in an unjustified way. When you look at all the details of what happened, there are people who engaged in BLM riots who are walking the streets freely. And then there were the protesters who were let into the Capitol Rotunda by Capitol Security, and yet they're doing years in federal prison. That sounds to me like a political prisoner. Also, did we not have a candidate for president get arrested on a whole bunch of absurd charges, like how many 39 felonies that they charged Trump with? Trump had his mugshot taken. It sounds like he was a victim of, political action, weaponizing the judicial system. So Tucker Carlson claiming to be in a unique position, or those who are claiming Tucker Carlson is in a unique position, we have a memory longer than a few months ago. We remember January 6th. We remember Trump's many charges that they levied against him. Also, Tucker Carlson hasn't been arrested yet, as far as I know. I haven't seen anything yet that says that the CIA busted down Tucker Carlson's door and dragged him out and threw him in prison. I haven't seen any of that. So what I do know, these are the claims, right, that Tucker Carlson is saying the CIA is going to be accusing him of being an Iranian spy. He has been in contact with people in Iran. That itself is not illegal, from what I understand. I'm not a lawyer or an attorney. I have no legal training at all. But I would say there's a difference between being in contact with somebody from Iran and then also, tipping them off. Hey, I have inside information, inside intel. Maybe I can leak something to you. Maybe they're giving him information and he's withholding it. Maybe if he has knowledge that Iran is organizing an attack on the U.S. and he's keeping that close to the chest. These are just all hypotheticals that I'm presenting to you here. But there is a world that Tucker Carlson could be in contact with Iran and basically be acting out espionage, right, on behalf of Iran rather than the United States, being treasonous against the United States. Now, do we think that Tucker Carlson is a foreign agent? I don't think so. Now, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I would say Tim Walz is much more likely a foreign agent for China than Tucker Carlson is a foreign agent for Iran or Qatar, however you say that, compared to many other people. So I am not convinced that Tucker Carlson is any kind of foreign agent here. I mean, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. It sounds like he's being accused of being a foreign agent for a number of different countries. How many countries can you be a foreign agent for? Is Tucker Carlson a good faith actor? That's where I'm on the bubble. I'm willing to say that he's more genuine than others, like Candace Owens. At the same time, Tucker Carlson's smart and knows how to get clicks. He knows what to do to get millions of views, which is a skill in of itself, I suppose. It is a skill. One that I don't entirely have. If I made more of my edited videos, I probably would do better. And I need to make some more, edited videos addressing particular topics. Those will come. Once I get past the Bible conference, that's normally how my schedule goes. We get past the Bible conference, then we start making some videos. And we try to gain and increase our reach a little bit through that. A lot of these people, though, they come and they don't stay. That's just the nature of YouTube and how it exists. But I will say, as I reflect and I think about Tucker, I think we all need to realize something. Mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, or MS Now, whatever it's called, ABC News, Fox News even, it is becoming a secondary medium of news and information and entertainment. The third-party outsiders are not the outsiders anymore. Daily Wire now has a press seat in the White House, and they're becoming a really big organization themselves. The podcasters, so whether it's Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, it's kind of hard to think about big left-wing podcasters because they're just, the right has really dominated that space for the most part. I know there are some, but big podcasting, these shows and people who have their own companies where they broadcast, they are the mainstream and they're entertainment. Tucker Carlson is an entertainer, okay? Now, it doesn't mean an entertainer can't give information, news, but they engage in entertainment. My thoughts are, these big podcasters, these big podcast shows, they're basically becoming reality TV. I'm not saying that you don't get any truth out of them. There's not anything that you can take away from it, but it is becoming reality TV. It's fantastical. It's on the, everybody's posting about it on X. Well, so-and-so's fighting with so-and-so, and so-and-so accused so-and-so of something. And here's the big beef this week between Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. And it's just all reality TV entertainment at this point. I have a degree of respect for a lot of these people. I've had respect for a lot of these people, and now it's waning for a good number of them. But it's just entertainment. And I would say whatever headline you see coming from just about anybody, you need to instantly take it with a grain of salt, whatever it says. Remember last week they were saying that the new Ayatollah was dead, and okay, well, no, he's not dead. And then there was, well, Bibi's dead. No, he's not dead. Trump was dead. There's just everything right now is up in the air. You need to give everything a good 48 hours before you start talking about anything. We were talking about in our sermon yesterday, right? The age of women not to be false accusers, the Greek word diablos, devils. Don't be devilish. Don't engage in false accusations. So whatever you read on the internet, whether it's from some obscure account or it's from some well-known podcaster, a news organization, obviously. I mean, we wouldn't trust anything CNN says. Give it give it at least 48 hours, 2 full days, see if any facts come out, if there's any new information given or revealed or announced. That way you don't make the mistake of getting caught in this trap of false accusation and deceit and fantastical narratives and everything else. So I just know that there's going to be some talk about that, and that's what I want people to keep in mind. Trent says, I do think that podcast is a big reason that radio is still a significant part of entertainment. Yeah, and I'm not an anti-podcaster. I guess I am one. I tried to fight the accusations, but then all of a sudden YouTube started labeling Shields and Arrows as a podcast. I didn't even do that. They did it. And so, yeah, podcasts, I think they're a great thing. It's just, like everything, it can be taken in an extreme. It can be manipulated. It can be used. You just got to have some good sense about you. And it's hard because the smaller the podcast, the harder it is to find them. But the people who are smaller, I do think you're more likely to get some real genuine opinion, because Shields and Arrows is not my means of living. Right now, I do multiple things, right, for what I do, to be completely honest. Baze Ministries is one of those, and I do rely on you to a great degree. I mean, I couldn't afford the equipment that we use and a lot of the advertisement and preparation that's gone into the Bible conference. I could not have done it without your support. But a part of the benefit of that is I'm not beholden to my audience for Shields and Arrows in order to have my bread on the table. And so because of that, I'm willing to just be honest and not necessarily chase what is fantastical, trying to get more eyes on me and then running sponsors and whatever else. And so if you can find some smaller podcasts where people are doing it more so out of conviction, and I do this because I have people who support me, but you support me more for my Sunday school studies and my sermons and things like that, or the Bible conference. This is that extra icing on the cake. This is kind of almost a thank you, where I take an hour out of my day to sit down and talk with you and share with you some of the things that I'm thinking about, or I do try to answer questions that you may have. So these big podcasts, I'm saying you need to be leery of to some degree, because there's motivations, there's external factors, there's third parties. Whereas if you can find others, maybe you'll get people's honest and genuine opinions, which I always try to give you. You've seen me many times venture into areas that I struggle with on a personal level, or telling you I'm not quite sure, I don't really know quite what to think. It seems like these big podcasters, they always know what to think. Michael Knowles is one of the few that I've said I appreciate, because he said, yeah, I don't know. Me personally, I'm not crazy about the Iran war, but let's see how it goes. Let's let Trump do his job. I respect that. Not everybody has to be an expert all the time. So podcasts are a very good thing. I agree with you, Trent. He says podcasts, in my opinion, have shaken the media world in the last few years. I'm 100% pro podcast, right? Individuals, private people doing their own discussion on politics or theology, the news, reporting, you name it. I'm all for it. I'm just saying don't allow yourself to get sucked into the world of big podcasts and the fantastical narratives, because it does become entertainment to a degree, and keep that in mind, right? Okay, let's go ahead and talk a little bit of news. I'll give you some thoughts here on current state of the Iran war. I guess that's what we're calling it. I'm not really sure. But here we go from Breitbart. Says, Operation Epic Fury, Day 16, Trump warns bad future for NATO if allies don't help in Strait of Hormuz. So obviously one of the things that Iran has done as of late is to try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, where so much oil and other things as well are shipped through. And now Trump is calling on NATO to help him. So I'm going to read the article a little bit for you. The military operation in Iran entered its 16th day on Sunday. The eyes of the world continue to focus on the Strait of Hormuz and its impact on international energy markets, while both President Trump and the remnants of the Iranian regime both reject suggestions of peace negotiations. 9 p.m. This was 9 p.m. yesterday. Trump warns bad future for NATO if allies don't help in Strait of Hormuz. Speaking to the Financial Times on Sunday, President Donald Trump continued his pressure campaign on the international community to pull its weight and help police the Strait of Hormuz, the critical oil supply chain choke point off the coast of Iran. It's only appropriate that people who are the beneficiaries of the strait would help to make sure that nothing bad happens there, Trump said, adding, if there's no response or if it's a negative response, I think it will be very bad for the future of NATO. I will say that I don't know all the details surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. Small podcast. I am willing to just tell you honestly. I don't know the dynamics of it, who has traditionally helped to secure it, who is involved there. I don't know this. But I will say, reflecting on NATO, I don't know, once again, what the requirements, the details of the treaty are. From what I understand, because the United States is not under direct attack on their land, on their soil, they have, I don't know if I want to use the term instigated, because Iran has instigated in a lot of ways, but the United States has carried out this attack on Iran. I don't believe that activates the articles within NATO for NATO to immediately have to come to the aid of the United States. But at the same time, as you reflect on this, NATO has had a history of the nations supporting one another, helping each other, aiding each other. If NATO is not doing anything to help the United States at this time, and Trump was potentially counting on them to be of support, because perhaps NATO has some invested interest as well in Iran being pro-United States, and I think by extent pro-NATO. What does that say about the state of NATO? Where are things at? If the United States can't count on allies in NATO to come through for them concerning the Strait of Hormuz, maybe not out of a sense of obligation in the contract, right, in the treaty itself, that organization, but just out of a sense of, you are an ally, we are going to help you the best we can. How confident are we in these NATO nations, these NATO countries, in a future event? Will they follow through on their word concerning that? Now, I will say it seems like NATO doesn't, there's not equal support, right, financially. We know the United States pays a significantly disproportionate amount to the funding of NATO, and Trump has a lot of lamentations about that. The failure of these NATO allies to not hold up their fair share. So the article goes on, says President Trump argued that Europe and Asia are far more dependent on oil from the Gulf region than the United States, which has become mostly energy independent due to the fracking revolution and pro-energy policies instituted by both Trump administrations. Trump suggested that he may delay an upcoming summit with Chinese dictator Xi Jinping if Beijing refuses to help keep the strait open. Other powers such as France, South Korea, and the UK have expressed willingness to send warships to the region, but have yet to commit to anything solid. According to a report from the Reuters news agency on Sunday, the Islamist regime in Tehran has arrested around 500 people amid the conflict with the United States and Israel for supposedly supplying information to the enemy. Iranian police chief Ahmad Reza Radan claimed that around half of those cases were against people who provided information for hitting targets and individuals who took footage of strike locations and sent them. And so as you just go back further, more in time, the current state of matters, is NATO going to do anything to help the United States? Now, if Trump was really counting on NATO to be of greater support, that would kind of show a miscalculation on Trump's behalf. And I would say that if NATO is not showing willingness to cooperate and they're kind of leaving the United States on their own, I'm assuming that is their prerogative. But how does that speak to just overall relations? When push comes to shove, how confident are you that other NATO allies will step in and do anything? So if we don't have a strong confidence that NATO is for us, because NATO, it would certainly seem, would have a vested interest in the Strait of Hormuz, it just does call the whole thing into question. Why are we in NATO again? What are we getting from NATO again? And Trump has spoken before about, do we even need to be in NATO? Should we withdraw? These are all interesting things that we need to consider. It does make you wonder what these other NATO nations would do if there was a different president in office. Would they be more willing to help? Trump has really pressed European countries to step up. Certainly, we never saw that from Biden. We never saw that from Obama. So, are the relationships between nations really just dependent upon foreign leaders? And if that's the case, which I'm not against, I think that, yeah, the foreign leader, the head of those nations, should play a factor in what degree you support them and how involved you are. If that is the reality, then why are we so bent on globalization? Why are we so inclined towards the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? Maybe reverting back to a more independent, sovereign nation type format is the better way to go. That way we don't get into conflict expecting allies to provide some basic aid and support, and then we end up being let down. Maybe we shouldn't rely on those other nations. So I guess if I was to critique Trump in one way, it would be expecting NATO to do something. Now, you could argue Trump there's layers to this, and he knew that NATO wasn't really going to help, so it's going to help reinforce his position that we can't trust them. I mean, you can do those lower dives into, or deeper dives into the dynamics of that and what Trump is trying to accomplish. But once again, I continue to see every reason for us to really take a step back and say maybe it's not in our best interest to be involved in these kind of international organizations, and we would be better prepared if we were more self-reliant. And maybe that's what Trump is going to push us towards in the future. I don't know. But I tried to report on it. That's the current state of things. The Ayatollah's son is still alive, from what we know. And Trump and the administration is still speaking as if this is all going to be over very soon. I hope that's the case. For the sake of the midterms, for the sake of just the fighting, right? The longer the war goes, the more people potentially could be killed, whether it's American troops or it's a collateral deaths, right? Innocent people who are killed tragically in war, because war is a horrible and terrible thing. So those are my thoughts currently on the situation with Iran. I don't have any further insight. Be interested to hear your thoughts. But yeah, like what Trent says, NATO has had very different goals than us for some time. And recent events have shown that more and more. Yeah, it seems that we don't have the same objective compared to what NATO has in mind. And so this is just another example. So let's not ever get into a conflict ever, assuming that we can count on NATO to be there for us. Those who are of the contrarian position will say, well, this is something the United States instigated, these other nations disagree with it. I'm not saying that they are unjust if they're not breaking the treaty, because I don't think there's anything in the treaty that says they have to come to the aid for a war that the United States instigated and are not under direct attack on sovereign land. All the same, you don't get to really just have it both ways. If you are not willing to send a couple battleships at the request of an ally, don't expect the organization, the treaty, to be in a strong position. So don't cry foul when you may make a similar request in the future. Let's go ahead and get into our theology portion here in our last segment of the show. And I want to talk about the 2026 men's retreat. The Oklahoma Baptist, they have an annual men's retreat. They normally do it, I think, in March. Maybe it's in April, but it's in the springtime. And they have it at the very famous, if I believe this is right, they always have it at Falls Creek, which is the big church camp. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about it for a minute, just because it's at Falls Creek. I always want to keep up with what the cooperative program is doing in Oklahoma, just not because I care, because I'm trying to follow along with the program, but rather so I can critique the many problems that the SBC has, and specifically focusing on my area, which is Oklahoma, even though it reflects there's going to be a lot of similarity with Oklahoma and Texas and Arkansas, Missouri, you name it. But here it is. Man Up, men's retreat, 1 Corinthians 16:13. They always have their little target verse there. Is that the one where in the King James it's quit you like men? 1 Corinthians 13:16. Of course, there's no telling what messed up Second Corinthians probably. No? 1 Corinthians 16:13. I think I typed it in wrong. Anyways, but they always have their verse that they reference, and who knows what translation they're using. Yeah. So, watch ye, stand fast in the faith, quit you like men, be strong. Okay? Quit you like men is interesting, the King James language there, but I think it's very faithful there. The Greek word adrizomai. The act of using, quit like men. I'm curious what that. I wonder what the Webster's 1828 dictionary means, because now I'm actually interested in doing some real study there, in which this is going to kind of make a point here that the BGCO doesn't really engage in serious Bible study. Webster's, which once again isn't the authority on the English language for the KJV, but it gives you a decent idea. Verb, transitive, preterist tense. Sense of quit is to leave, to withdraw from, obviously we know that, but the primary sense of the root must have been to move or to send. For to requit is to send back. So yes, you think of quit as withdraw, but it's a movement, right? Do something, right? Quit. Take action is maybe the way that you could, to leave, to depart from, either temporarily or forever. It does not necessarily include the idea of abandoning without a qualifying word. A man quits his house for an hour or for a month. He quits his native country on a voyage, or he quits it forever, right? Something you're quitting, you're departing from. Anyways, I like the King James, and I think that it enriches your vocabulary in the way you see the English language. I would imagine they're probably using the ESV. What's 1 Corinthians 16:13 in the ESV? Let's see what inspiring words they use. So the ESV says, act like men. Act like men. Not terrible, I guess, but I don't think that's probably what it's capturing in the Greek. And also, you lose the richness of the English language when you just say, instead of quit like men, or some kind of action in that sense, or a more powerful action. We're just going to say act like men. Let's see what they have to say about this retreat. It's April 24th through the 25th. It says, in 2025, we commemorated 25 years of faithful ministry to men in Oklahoma. As we go forward, our prayer remains the same: to continue to honor the Lord, reach and grow men together for the glory of God. Last year's theme, Man Down, drawn from Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, reminded us life is better with brothers. Okay. It's fine, I guess. I mean, Ecclesiastes, though, you got to be careful. Be careful building doctrine from Ecclesiastes. Not everything in there is about us. That is completely lost on the evangelicals. And Calvinist says the overwhelming feedback after the men's retreat was an appreciation for the concentration on discipleship and brotherhood. That's all they can ever talk about at these men retreats, because the SBC is so fractured, they are so disjointed and ununited on doctrine, because there's doctrinal issues that they just avoid and they won't talk about it. I'm having a Bible conference. It's always the baseline. Life is better with brothers. Well, that is just so sweet. This warms my cold, fundamentalist heart. Life is better with brothers. I would love to see the day when if I ever became the president of the BGCO, I would do this. The men's retreat. First of all, axe out men's. Okay, men's retreat. Because I think it's silly. Wow, we're going to go out in the woods and we're going to act like men. We're going to have a fishing day and we're going to play some frisbee golf and we're going to talk about being men, woodworking. It's an act. It's all so forced. And most of these guys that come are probably going to be wearing skinny jeans and slip-on shoes. All right, it's embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself. Cut it out. Quit. Quit you like men. I would love to see, how about this? Let's just get rid of all that. Let's just axe it completely. And rather it would say something like Bible conference, a study on, I don't know, eschatology. Bible conference, a study on soteriology. Bible conference, a study on prophecy. Something like that. Something like that. Something that's actually based on the Bible rather than a single verse. And then they're probably going to go, let's talk about Benaiah who fought a lion in a pit of snow. And wow, right, that's a man. Man up right there. Now, what are the lions in your life? What do you got to fight? You know, laziness and slothfulness and temptation. You got to fight that lion. How do you fight it? By the word of God, in prayer and sanctification. Yeah, rinse, wash, repeat. We do it every year. It's the same old thing. I've never been to the men's conference. I have no interest in going to the men's conference. I do a Bible conference where we teach actual theology, so I have no interest in that. But I would love for that to be what ends up happening if I'm ever made the dictator of the BGCO. I'm working on it. Okay, so for the 2026 men's retreat, our theme will be Man Up, reflecting on 1 Corinthians 16:13, be watchful, stand firm. Yeah, ESV, the extremely sinful version. Our sub-theme will be Act Like Men. Quit like men. Quit like men would be so much better. In a culture that has distorted and tainted the meaning of manhood, this message is more important than ever. Okay. I'm going to read this, and I'm going to see what I think. Because I see John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, Chuck Norris, and Dwayne Johnson mentioned here. Here we go. Biblical manhood is not simply looking masculine, such as dressing or speaking the part, like John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, Chuck Norris, or Dwayne Johnson. Okay, so yes, I would agree. Just talking in a rough voice and dressing in a certain way doesn't make you a man. But I would say, looking at the current state of men in our churches around here, in Oklahoma, you think Oklahoma, this is this is cowboy country. These are rednecks, folks. There's something in the water turning the frogs. There's something wrong with the men around here. Even in Oklahoma, they don't look like men. They're wearing skinny jeans. They're wearing V-neck t-shirts, slip-on shoes. There's a problem. There's a very serious problem. Durant is hippie town, okay? Durant, Oklahoma is. It's hard to find just manly-looking men. So I would say probably one of the first things I would say is, hey, go look up John Wayne, go look up Clint Eastwood, Chuck Norris, Dwayne Johnson. Yeah, I mean, he lifts. I guess he's got muscles. Look those guys up and start dressing more like a man, okay? We've got to get rid of all this. Sir, please take the nose ring out of your face. That is embarrassing. Yeah, we got guys in churches wearing nose rings. And I don't care. I think it's silly. Yeah, I think it's silly. Jesus loves you, but it's silly. Cut it out. And so, I already hate it. I already hate so much of what they're doing here. All right, this oversimplification of manhood leads to immaturity, selfishness, depression, and regret. It's just the same old thing. Now, being a man is not just talking like a man. Okay, yes, true, very true. But you've been saying the same old stuff. And you know what it reinforces? It reinforces that guy that it's okay to be overweight, out of shape, not physically prepared, and dressing in what looks like his wife's pants. All right? It's a problem. It's a real problem. Quit being effeminate. You know what? That would be my Bible conference. The men, I would call it a men's retreat. But it would kind of be a Trojan horse, because then I would just berate them for being effeminate all the time. Being effeminate. Shame on you for being effeminate. Let's all talk about our feelings. Paul expresses this when he says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, when I became a man, I gave up childish ways. I don't really know that that's entirely what Paul was talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. But hey, if you can shoehorn a verse in to make it work, then I guess, go for it, right? That's what you do. That's par for the course there. Here we go. For believing men, however, manning up means pursuing Christ-likeness and embracing our God-given roles and responsibilities, no matter how difficult it is. These are all fine, basic things. Pursuing Christ-likeness. I didn't mean to sound condescending when I read Christ-likeness, but the issue is that it's a very evangelical word, and I know all the connotations that come with it. So when I do a search for the word Christ-likeness in the King James, as a matter of fact, any other Bible version, there's not Christ-likeness. Okay, that's not a word. So when I see... Furthermore, there's not even a Christ-like. Christ-like. Now, Christ is used as an example for us, and I would not take a complaint against somebody saying we should be Christ-like. I get the sentiment there. But I will say, one needs to have a firm grasp on the ministry of Christ, the purpose of his teachings, not the hippie Jesus that is presented by he gets us and just modern evangelicalism, it seems like. Also, not the mystical speaking Jesus that so many people accuse Jesus of being. Jesus was not a mystical teacher. He spoke much more plainly than most people realize. And understanding the difference between Christ's ministry and the mystery given to Paul by Christ. So when I see words thrown out, I read it and I instantly catch all of the evangelical baggage that comes with it. And so that's why I read it the way I did, because I wasn't thinking about Christ-likeness in that sense. I was thinking about all of the connotations that are carried out. So moving on. Embracing our God-given roles and responsibilities. I don't have a problem with that. Men do have God-given roles and responsibilities. This means being watchful, standing firm in the faith, acting like men, and being strong. It's not only our ability to do this physically, emotionally, or financially that matters, but to protect, provide, and lead ourselves and our families spiritually. Yeah, but I think you need to emphasize the physical matter a little bit more. I think that we spend way too much time de-emphasizing that. I think that's wrong. I think it's embarrassing for men to not be physically strong. I really do. But yes, there's a whole lot more to being a man than just the physical side of things. But we've gone too far in a direction and we've left that behind. We are excited about the lineup this year. We are also excited to welcome Matt Robertson from Marlow Connection Church. I hate that name. Connection Church. Ugh! Just call it Marlow Church, or call it Marlow Bible Church, or Marlow Christian, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Marlowe Chapel. I just don't like the modern names. Our main sessions will feature 2 special guests for our man talk. Oh, my goodness. I'm not going to anything that they call something a man talk. I ain't going to, I always ask myself, because I really do, I'm still a little boy, and I think my dad is, I look to him as like, okay, would my dad find this to be manly or silly, right? To be worth his time. My dad ain't going to anything where they say, all right, everybody, it's time to sit down for our man talk. That's just goofy. That's absurd. It's embarrassing. I ain't going to it. You know what we do? We sit down for a session. Study the Word of God. No wonder our men are so sad, embarrassing nowadays. So our main sessions will feature 2 special guests for our man talks. Eric Hernandez, former lead apologist for the Baptist General Convention of Texas. I don't know him. Maybe a good guy. And then Todd Fisher. I've met Todd Fisher. He's a good guy. I like him. Has a heart for small churches. He's not a right divider, but he's the executive director, treasurer of Oklahoma Baptist. In addition, we are honored to welcome Lou Sterrett, founder and CEO of Sermon on the Mount Ministries. Christ-likeness. That's why I tried to emphasize there. You throw around words like kingdom, Christ-likeness. You throw around words like, I don't know, whether it's repentance or sanctification, you name it, without really thinking about the doctrinal implications of these terms. These words have significant. What do you mean to follow Christ, to be Christ-like? Keep the law? Because Jesus Christ taught keeping the law. You got to be careful about just throwing around words and not really taking great care to speak accurately. So Sermon on the Mount Ministries. And I wonder if they teach adherence to the law in the Sermon on the Mount Ministries. And Danny Gandera, pastor of Dell City, Sunny Lane. I don't know them either. The men's retreat will once again challenge and equip men through practical, relevant breakout I don't like that. All the words. It's like, I'm triggered. I'm triggered by all of their silly evangelical words. Like breakout sessions. Designed to meet men of any age where they are. This year's breakouts will focus on evangelism, apologetics, men's ministries, grandparents, and more. Lastly, we will provide multiple activities that are peaceful, like fishing, competitive like pickleball, athletic like running a 5K, and exhilarating like shooting sports. Probably shotguns, I guess. One of the best parts of the retreat is the downtime allowed for activities. We understand this time is more than just fun. It's intentional fellowship with godly men. We look forward to seeing you April 24th through 25th, 2026 at Falls Creek. For more information and to register, visit oklahomabaptist.org/men/retreat. I'm not going to be signing up. Here's the thing. They've been doing the men's retreat for many years now, and I'm not seeing any improvement in the state of the men within the BGCO. Just brutal honesty. I'm not saying there aren't good men within the BGCO. Please don't take this as, if you're watching this and you're a good old Southern Baptist, I'm not disparaging every man. There are men who love their families. There are men that exemplify masculinity both externally and inwardly. They lead their families well. But this ain't it. This ain't working. They try to do the same thing over and over again. It doesn't accomplish anything. Maybe this big ecumenical event, and really the SBC events are ecumenical because you got a Calvinist church, you got a dispensationalist-ish church, you got just standard evangelical church. They're just all over the board. It's just ecumenicalism, and nothing is really accomplished. Guys will come back a little bit motivated, I guess. They got a few nights away from the wife and kids to where they can just have fun, I guess. Go to a Bible conference. Take the wife and kids with you. How about that? I think that's much more manly. Study real actual doctrine and theology, and don't use vague terminology. Speak accurately. Speak precisely. That is what I encourage you to do. Even Romans 8:29, who would maybe argue, for whom he did foreknow, he did also predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. How if that's to us, Romans 8:29, being conformed into the Son's image, maybe that image of righteousness, because the righteousness of Christ is credited to our account. So maybe when we go back and read Jesus' instructions, we don't read adherence to the law or Sabbath, which is a part of the law, into all that. We don't read eschatology into our doctrine of salvation today, enduring to the end to be saved. It's the righteousness of Christ. It's His holiness. Maybe, though, if we study seriously, we may find that Romans 8:29 is Israel, because Israel is who God foreknew, and they're to be conformed to the image of His Son, and they were called to keep the law. Just something to keep in mind when you start diving into the depths of theology, rather than just throwing around words. That's why I don't throw around kingdom. I don't use that terminology, because it will confuse people. I don't speak about God's kingdom just overall, right? Even though there's passages in Scripture that speak about God being king of all things in a present tense when you read in Psalms or what have you. But there's weaker brethren. And because of the weaker brethren, I don't use kingdom in a broad term. Because there's weaker brethren, I even be careful not to use Christ-likeness. Is that because I think that we should act, that Jesus was a bad example? No, that's not what I'm saying. And if you think that's what I'm saying, you're misunderstanding the very important doctrinal matters at hand. What did Jesus teach during His earthly ministry? What was the focus of His ministry? Was it to all people of every age, including ours? Or was it uniquely to Israel? So there's instruction in there that you find uniquely to Israel, and Christ perfectly fulfilling the law. Now, granted, there's many great examples of Christ's obedience to God, the temptation of Satan, and so on, that you can absolutely find great lessons to be learned from Christ in His life. Remaining silent before His accusers. There's times in which people may be accusing you of all sorts of things, and yet you just remain silent because you know what's truth, and you don't want to waste your breath on such false accusations. But when you throw out words without giving any clarification doctrinally, you can lead to confusion. And that's why there's confusion today. And when we read Jesus' teachings, you have to, if you're an evangelical, you got to allegorize. That's not really what Jesus meant. I know what Jesus said, but what He meant was such and such. Therefore, they can claim we're being Christ-like without putting ourselves under the law. Even though a lot of churches, funny enough, still do. They put themselves under legalism, under the law. So anyways, that's my thoughts on the men's retreat. Once again, it's just, we've done this several times now. It just seems to be more of the same. It's rinse, wash, repeat, year in, year out, and it's not fixing anything. Do something different. Do something different. Quit like men. Quit doing this silly thing. Quit doing this silly men's retreat. And actually do something that's of value. Study theology. Study doctrine. Those are my thoughts. So with that, we will, I plan on being back tomorrow. I've got to go now. I've got to start working more on Bible conference preparation. Really do appreciate each and every one of you who have taken the time to tune in. Thank you for supporting the ministry. We've had some really great donations from people. We're going to be able to afford to do some nice things at the conference. And so with that, I really do appreciate everybody that is with us today. And let's see, I'm trying to find there we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, this has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. Had to turn the music on there for you. Have a good rest of your Monday. If you have any questions about the conference, please reach out to me. I know some of you reached out about sponsors, potentially, place to stay. I'm talking to people. Otherwise, there's a number of different places you could stay. There's hotels in the area. And so with that, this has been Shields and Arrows. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your Monday.